Hello everyone, and welcome to my favorite books that I read in 2023. So let's first discuss all of the changes that went through my reading tastes this year. I started reading more comics and graphic novels. It was a total of 22 out of the 81 or more books that I have read this year. And of course, I plan to continue that into the next year. Now, as for more changes this year, I tried out more contemporary romances, I tried out a few more thrillers, and I definitely stepped down the amount of YA that I read. And I, of course, read 12 more books off of my 100 Epic Reads of a Lifetime poster. There were lots of hits, surprisingly, but of course there were a few misses as well. I feel like that poster, that will be the definitive message from it, is that there's going to be a lot of hits and a lot of misses. And finally, here is all of the books that got 1 to 5 stars this year. And it makes my average a nice clean 3.01 stars, which is better than previous years. A lot of my yearly averages have been 2 stars. So I'm glad to see that I'm at a perfect 3 stars this year. So this is a video discussing my 10 to 11 favorite books that I read this year. I gave plenty of other books 5 stars. Some of these are 4 stars, but these are just the books or comics that have just stood out to me in my mind, had made me think, and made me realize that these are my favorites and I enjoyed them the most this year. Of course, I will be discussing them in the order I read them rather than ranking them. So let's just get right into it. So my first favorite book of the year is The Pallbearers Club by Paul Tremblay. So this was my first Paul Tremblay book that I read, and I was hooked on the premise alone. So you are reading the memoir of this very, very sad man's life. This is essentially his manuscript, and he's talking about how he believes that the friend that he made in high school could possibly be a vampire. And written in different text in this manuscript is that best friend herself, adding commentary, critique, and discussing why he believes certain things, the explanation for things, and ultimately just dragging into what this narrative he created is. This book is incredibly well written, poignant, and creative despite the very simple premise and simple plot. I loved the 2 main characters and reading both of their writing styles. I loved how they thought differently about the events of the story and just how this entire piece just came together for that really, really good ending. It's an incredible story about how to sort of get out of your centered perspective of framing things and to sort of see things on the outside, and how your own personal truth in the end can ruin you. It can ruin your life, and it can ruin the end of your life. And I feel like this book is incredibly personal to the author. I can just see all that personal, self-consciousness and writing, insecurities. So it's just an incredible story, and I really like the sort of vampire adjacent essence to it. I thought that this was an incredible read. I was really captivated by this unique twist on attempting to write a fake memoir. It really made me think. My next favorite book of 2023 was House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. Now this is a sort of YA, sort of new adult vampire novel. It's historical fiction, and it's about a woman who currently lives in sort of the slums of the city, being invited to a countess's giant estate to essentially be a blood maid, which is you donate your blood to her when you need it, and then otherwise you are essentially a scullery maid, and you can climb your ranks to being sort of a party goer or her own little personal eye candy. So it's the struggle of this main character trying to climb the ranks in this countess's circle of her blood maids and trying to make her way to the top, while also including a lot of queer and sapphic elements. This is an incredibly compelling, atmospheric, and gothic story that really shocked and intrigued me. You're essentially in the hallways of the mansion with her as she's slowly discovering twist after twist and realizing just the true horror of these vampires that she's essentially stuck with, because this estate is in the middle of nowhere. She's stuck here, and her struggles in dealing with all of the personal drama of the Blood Maids and of the Countess herself. It was just an incredibly effective gothic horror, and one that really sent a cool message and had a lot of sexual intrigue. I really liked how dark this went without being too descriptively gory. I like when gothic tales are allowed to be creepy and gory without heavily describing it just for the sake of shock value. So I really enjoyed this book. My next favorites of the year were Batman Hush by Jeff Loeb, Jim Lee, and Scott Williams, and Batman Heart of Hush by Paul Dini, Dustin Nguyen, and Derek Friedolfs. So Batman Hush was essentially my very first step into reading the official Batman comics, and I think that this was just an excellent introduction to not just the Rogues Gallery and Batman as a character, but also a few other DC characters who are warped into this, like Superman is brought into this, etc. And I really enjoyed the art inside the comic, as well as the relationship with Batman and Catwoman, which is one of my favorite parts of reading the comics. This was just an excellently told tale. I thought it was really cool, and it really mirrors Batman's character and Bruce Wayne, and all the Rogues Gallery having a piece in the puzzle was just really fun to read about. Heart of Hush was sort of a more odd, more macabre follow-up, but it was really dramatic, and I really enjoyed the story in here as well. Once again, we're tackling Batman and Catwoman's relationship, and I think that Hush as a character is pretty compelling in these two stories. I don't know what else he would be able to do, because he's very personally screwing Batman over, and if you get that over and over again, it's a little bit tiring. But he is a good foil for Batman because he's able to use his allies against him, as well as using his villains against him to really dig into him and make him suffer. So I think that both of these tales were really good. I really enjoyed them. My next favorite book of the year was Temper by Lane Fargo. Now, I highly recommend listening to the audiobook because that's how I read this novel. It really displays the dual perspective very well and is really good at digging into the tension of the plot of the novel. Now, this story is, like I said before, dual perspective. So on one side, it is about a struggling actress as she takes place in a play, and the producer of the play as they're building up, practicing in preparation to perform this play, and both of their relationships with the toxic director and main actor of the show, as he is sort of twisting everybody into getting really toxic, really abusive, and ultimately really violent. He's ultimately pushing everyone to the edge, and there is excellent explanation for all of this going on, and even the secondary characters are brought into it. It's all just really tense like this, and then it just blows up at the end, and it's incredibly shocking. Now, this was my second Lane Fargo story that I read. The first one was They Never Learn, which was also dual perspective and sort of tension brought to a boiling point. And I think that this one was done a whole lot better. I think because of the short time frame, as well as the actual play itself sort of being brought into their real life. It was a really fun ride. I highly recommend it. It is a pretty easy to read thriller, and I really liked it. My next favorite of the year was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang, and I really enjoyed this light and easy romance because I could personally relate to it, and I thought that the characters were really kind and understanding, and I thought that these sex scenes were written really well. There's a lot of times where sex scenes get to a point where they're cringy, and I can't take mostly dialogue seriously. With the things people say during it is just bleh, oh no. And sometimes the descriptions of what they're doing or the person involved, just weird. But this book, fine, well done. I was not icked out by any of these sex scenes. And I thought that this was just a really good contemporary romance, and I am glad that was one of the ones that I read when trying out the genre. My next favorite book of the year is Batman Under the Red Hood by Judd Winnick et al. You know, for no reason. For no reason at all. You know, it's just a random pick. You know, no reason. But in all seriousness, in Judd Winnick, we trust. This is just a perfect exploration on the origins of Red Hood, on Jason and Batman as characters and their relationship, and I want more Jason and Red Hood content like this. I have no idea what they're doing with the character now. Goodness gracious, though, there was a long time where they were just not doing anything good with his character. Now, I haven't read any of Red Hood and the Outlaws, but it just doesn't sound good from an outside perspective. I could be wrong. And I apologize if you do personally like Red Hood and the Outlaws. I can't get over the disgusting mask mouth. That's just me. I can't get over the disgusting mask mouth. This comic also was funny. Like, I was shocked at the sense of humor in this story. I really liked it. The art, of course, is just beautiful, and of course, just an excellent plot. If you don't feel like reading the big boy, though, the movie is also a wonderful adaptation of the comic, so I highly recommend both. My next favorite of the year is, of course, All's Well by Mona Awad. Another story about putting on a play and the play affecting their lives. I never thought that in 1 year, 2 of my favorites of the year would take place under this premise. I'm normally not interested in books about theater or books about plays because I personally don't enjoy theater all that much. So I'm really, really happy and surprised that both of these books turned out to be favorites. This is the second Mona Awad book that I've read, the first one, of course, being Bunny, and I'm looking forward to more books by her. I believe she is one of my favorite authors, so I'm looking forward to Rouge, which I will be reading soon. This is a story about pain, jealousy, friendship, and obsession that parallels the 2 plays that are being put on in the novel, and this is just a great journey. I love the ride that Mona Awad always takes us on, with weird language, weird sense of humor, very shocking ideas from all of the characters, and I love it. I love that the characters can be bad people. I just really, really love digging into worlds like this and language like this and stories like this and just being tugged along by Mona Awad. So this was a very, very excellent novel. My next favorite of the year is Batman Mad Love by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, which features the story of Harley Quinn and the Joker and her origins in becoming his sidekick, as well as a few other short comics too. I believe these all eventually became Batman the animated series episodes, that being the new Batman Adventures, which was the final season that took place a few years later. Mad Love is one of the greatest episodes of that series, and there are a few stories in here that eventually became either part of other episodes or entire episodes on their own, because there is the Christmas stories in here that eventually became Holiday Nights. I know I don't need to say anything about Mad Love. It is just a perfectly written story. I enjoy it so, so much. And of course, while reading it, you just hear Arlene Sorkin, you hear Kevin Conroy, you hear Mark Hamill in all of their roles. It is just a very, very excellent comic. And all the other stories in here about the ventriloquist, about Etrigan the demon, about Roxy Rocket, and all the Christmas vignettes, these were all really, really good stuff in here too. They were all surprisingly emotional too. Like the little frog that ventriloquist has as a new puppet. He's the sweetest little thing in the world, and I was so sad. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed these. These were so, so fun, and I really, really loved this comic. My next favorite of the year was In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, which I read off of my 100 Epic Reads of a Lifetime poster, and I have talked about this a lot, but I will just quickly say that it is a really tasteful story about a real-life event where a family got killed in Kansas in the 50s, and it is just about the small town and the events that took place prior, the criminals who decided to attack this family and kill them, the process of their story slowly getting figured out, them being revealed as the criminals, and their eventual execution. It is just a very excellent plot line, very well written, very tasteful to everyone involved. Capote went to the town and talked to anybody who was willing to speak to him. It was all just very emotional. There was a huge personal connection to this story. He was not just writing about it for the sake of sensation. He felt very personal in here, and his writing style was just beautiful. If you are interested in true crime, and even if you're not, check this out because it is very well done. It is not the modern day depiction of true crime that is very tasteless and very descriptive of the crimes going on and obviously trying to send some sort of gross message. It is just very, very well done, and I was very emotionally moved by the story. And my final favorite of 2023 was Far From the Mating Crowd by Thomas Hardy, which is another book I had to read off of my 100 Epic Reads of a Lifetime poster. Now, this was a Victorian novel written in the 1870s about this woman who runs a farm and the three men in her life that sort of fall for her or she falls for them. It is an incredibly personal story and has a lot of descriptions about sheep farming, funnily enough, and I very thoroughly enjoyed this book. It is essentially the main character Bathsheba as she falls for three different suitors, that being the simple farmer, Farmer Oak, the weird soldier, Sergeant Troy, and the gentleman farmer, his name is Boldwood. And it's all very personal, and it's about their relationships and how they essentially try to woo Bathsheba and her responses to that, obviously, and the events of the novel. And it shows just, how that sort of love, there's obsessive love, there's devoted love, and then there is the love where you try to just use somebody, and it is all just very, very effective and well done, and is a really good example of a Victorian romance. And it was actually very shocking. There was actually surprisingly a lot of action in here. I gasped during the climax, and I was like, whoa, they're actually doing this. This is crazy. I really, really liked it. If you are off-put by classics because of the language, this author was a poet, so it is very, very easy to access without being too flowery, and despite being over 100 years old, very, very good stuff. I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed this novel, and I'm glad that the poster introduced me to this, because I only knew Thomas Hardy via Tess of the Dubervilles, which I have yet to read. I will be reading that next year. So this is an excellent, excellent story. So there we have it. Those are my favorite books that I read in the year of 2023. I want to thank everyone for seeing me through to the end of the year and watching all of my videos. I did a lot of varying things this year, so I hope everyone enjoyed them, and I hope everyone is looking forward to the new year and all of my reading journey there. This has been a very, very odd year for me, so I'm glad that I had a lot of books to read that I enjoyed throughout the year. So thank you so, so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and look forward to more very, very fun content in the year 2024. That sounds stupid and crazy to say, that we are just going through time. That's not a real year. Thank you again so much, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye. I just got this Jason doll for my birthday, and I love him so much. He's mine now.